Hi, everyone. Janet Harley, your host for Faith in an Ever Changing World Encouragement and Hope Faith Story. Today, I have with me George A. Johnson, and we're going to learn more about him right after this. Hi, George, and welcome to Faith in an Ever Changing World. Thank you for joining me.
Oh, thanks for having me, Janet. It's nice to be here with you.
Oh, and George is a multiple award winning director, producer, writer, and he knew his calling, God's calling, at an early age. He has a list of accomplishments over the years. The most current one is George wrote, directed, and produced Pulled from Darkness and won Best Screenplay for it at Content 2020, an international Christian film festival. Pulled from Darkness is currently in post production, and we'll have to talk about that a little bit later. George says that he has always wanted to create stories that would get people asking questions about God. That's awesome. And thank you again, George, for joining me today. And if you will, please share your faith story.
Okay, that's such a great question. It's such a big question.
Yeah.
Thinking for the last couple days, how would I summarize faith story? I got saved when I was five, so I don't really remember a faith story. But if I were to kind of condense my faith story and my experience into a statement, it would be without God, I can't, but with God, all things are possible.
Mm,
Um,
yes.
just so many times in my life, I've kind of been a big dreamer and had all kinds of ideas. And when I was young, I used to just think I could do anything, and make these films and do all these things. And I just kind of started putting a lot of confidence in my ability to do things. And over the course of years, as I got older, I realized that without God, I couldn't do any of it. There was actually a time, situation. I used to be very casual with God. We'd have some fun conversations, and I remember telling him, "Hey, I'm getting pretty good at this stuff, huh? Aren't you impressed?" That was always my thing, and probably still to a degree, wanting to, maybe someday. And he actually kind of like, "Oh, are you good at writing and making these films? This film's fantastic." And then I sensed something changed when he said that. I woke up the next day with writer's block, or had writers. Always, I had 50, 60 different ideas going on in my head. I had all these movies, and that's where I figured it out, because I don't know if I've ever done a movie before. I see it. I'll watch the whole movie and I just write down what I saw. It's like God just sort of downloads it to me. Well, the downloading quit for a little while there, and I was like, oh. So I was working at a job to write these short commercials for this television network. Like, so I need an idea. I was like, I couldn't come up with anything, so I just try to force it and come up with some sort of story that made sense, or some sort of commercial that would promote the ministry. I had nothing. And it took a couple weeks, but I finally realized, okay, no, I repented. I said, I apparently I'm good at this as I thought I was. And then the ideas back. And that's happened one of, where man, it was fun. I was working with a musician named Carmen at the time, and I had written a bunch of movies. And because I started writing scripts when I was 7. I wrote my first feature length when I was 15 or 16. and I was 20 at the time, I guess, and I was
Wow.
in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and my movies had really gone from like these great stories that were people saved, like the evangelical movies of the 80s that were so great. I wanted to make them more and more like Hollywood, and I'd eventually gotten it was basically just a Hollywood movie that like mentioned God somewhere. And he had a conversation. I was down there. I lived in Tulsa. I had a real spiritual awakening, a real with the Holy Spirit down there. And he's like, where are you going? What are you doing? What are you doing, Grace? You know, I'm giving you these things, and then you're kind of edging me out. So
Uh-huh.
Hollywood appreciates what you're doing. And I was like, well, and he said, you got to get rid of everything. And I was like, well, what do you mean? What do you mean, computer off? He's like, no. It wasn't even a computer back then. It was a word processor. They were 3.5 floppies. He said, you got to get rid of all of it. And I was like, but if I get everything I've ever written, nothing. My whole life is gone. Literally never went to a high school. And all through junior high school, I was writing. I was that was my life. I hung out with my brother and my cousin, and wrote scripts, and I got to get rid of all of it. And so, after resisting for a while, I finally knew that resistance was futile, and I took all the discs with all my scripts into the dumpster, and then I had nothing, and it was like this cleansing time where I guess I'm done. It's because like when you're 20, writing since you were 7, that's your life. All I knew. And I was like, okay, so I'm done. That time it was probably a year before any ideas came back. And I just figured I'm not doing. I'm going to do something else. I went home with Carmen Ministries, got a job at a factory, Garts. I just kind of drifted from factory to factory and had no real direction in life. And then I ran into a guy. I learned with this video production company I worked with. My first day was this other guy's last day, and we hung out for that day and got along. And never saw each other again. Into this public access television station in Grand Rapids, and just play with a camera. I want to do something, story of some kind. So I went into this station, and he worked there. I was like, oh hey, you Michigan now. And he hit it off right away. And he talked to hiring me, and I still didn't really have a lot of creative ideas.
Uh-huh.
But they started to come back. I started doing some commercials for this, and it was like God started bringing it back to me. And then over the course of, and then I eventually got into a Christian television station, and it was like I remember the day. So I public access station, worked for like any new station, and I switched to a Christian television station, and we had to uproot. My wife and I moved to another. And start over basically.
Wow.
And I was like, okay. And their big thing was we need for this network. Okay, so need you, God. And it was like as soon as we made that switch and said, "Oh, we're going to do this ministry job," all of a sudden it was like the lights and the idea coming again, and so many ideas that they just and it was just powerful stuff. Like I'm not really coming up with anything that moving, but when God gives you an idea, man, it's like I can see the whole thing, and I just have to try and recreate it the best that I can with a camera, and and it was just, and that's how it's been. And then with like the movies, we got into films. In 2008, I was working for a company doing marketing, and it's that job. And as many people did in 2008, kind of everything their jobs at that time. And I got depressed. And I thought, I'm not providing for my family. I'm not taking care of us. And I tried applying for other jobs, but there was just nothing out there. Everybody was losing their jobs, and I'm afraid we're house. And on my end, no way I could have done anything to stop it. I'm saying me by. But God came to me and said, okay, you've experienced what millions of people are experiencing. You need to make a movie to encourage people. I was like, make a movie? I was like, how I can't even. My power just got shut. Couldn't afford the electric bill to make a movie,
Oh,
and it started. So up until that point, it took me about 10 to 12 months to write a script, and I wrote Homeless for the House in 1 month, December. And I
wow.
actually wrote it at the library because we didn't have power at home. And so
George?
there was one day, so many that movie that were based on what we went through during the time. Like I came home, I'm at the library, take care of my family, and just feeling like a punk of a dad, trying to get this movie written. And I came, and it was, and I find my wife and my kids singing by our gas fireplace, playing the guitar and
Oh,
songs. Just like wow, and it made me realize like the Christmas for my son was a bag of little like army dollar store, and I thought I'm the worst dad ever. He loved it, the greatest toy ever, man. So I just realized the things too that we've been taught to think are what people need, although commercialism and all that isn't that important. And we just
yeah.
realized that our faith and our family meant so much more than me having the ability to buy stuff, big presents from kids. Now I've probably bought them some few presents to make up for it over the years since. But that was just a really special time for me. That I just realized I didn't need to buy them extra
Yeah.
Legos or whatever for them to be they were just happy with what we had together. And the kids have sense. Can we just turn off all the lights, turn off the power for Christmas, and just have a powerless Christmas again? So that was a really powerful experience for me.
Wow.
I created the
Thank
script.
you for sharing that because, George, I've seen Home for the Holidays.
Yeah,
It's a wonderful movie. I hope everyone can get to see it. But knowing the story behind that now means a lot. Thank you for sharing that.
you're well. There's so many. Another one. I don't like to usually tell this one because I don't bless anything, but we were last little bit of money, and we went to a pizza place to get our last pizza. A guy behind the pizza place digging stir, and the whole family agreed. Let's give it to him, and so we
Wow.
did. And then a little girl had sold Christmas cards, or she sold. It was Christmas, but she had sold eggs, and raised my money so that we could have a bigger Christmas. And I'm like, what? And that was real. And if you look at the envelope, when you hand it to her, it's this wrinkly, beaten up envelope. Johnson's on it. It's an envelope that the little girl had given us.
Wow.
That movie is so full of things experienced. But so the script is finished now. I have no power in the house, and God says, "Now make it." I don't have anything. I'm like, how? In the world can I possibly make a movie with nothing? And he says, just go, take one step, and I'll be with you. And so we post. I argued because first movie I shot like a basic prosumer video camera, like a home video camera. I was like, I don't want again. There was this new camera called the Red that is shooting movies on, and I said I really wanted to shoot next movie on a Red for months. I've been next movie Red. I just was focused on this camera, and I was like, I don't want to shoot this on video camera. I want to make my bigger, And I get an email like the next day or a couple days later from a camera friend of mine, camera operator friend. I didn't talk to him enough. He's like, hey, I just got this camera and I need to create a project thing. Camera. He's like, it's a Red. I said, oh, okay. I said, well, I have a Christmas movie that I'm writing that I have no money and no way to make it happen. He's like, well, send it to me. Let me take a look. And he read it. I love it. It was, I will assume, and we'll work for free. If it makes great, something out on the back end, but let's just do it. And I was like, well, my goodness. Okay. So God provided a crew and the camera I had been dreaming of. So I was like, okay. So we put a little ad in the paper and a little ad on the internet and said, hey, auditions for this Christmas movie. It's all volunteer. My wife said she was expecting like eight people to show up, 8 or 10 people to show up. And it was about 1,000 people showed up audition. We had people from Connecticut, Vermont, Illinois, Michigan, Indianapolis, came from everywhere. We're like, where will this even happen? It just didn't even make sense. But camera guy, we were recording auditions, and people could only have like a minute. We were at this movie, and just so many people. We couldn't spend a lot of time with them, and we'd get like a couple hundred, auditions halfway through, and we're peeking up out the window, and the theater just packed. We had several people say they got there and couldn't get in the door, so they turned around and left. They didn't even get to. And the camera guy's like, it's like an optical illusion. It just never ends. And so we had all this amazing talent to choose from the movie, and all these people were willing to work as volunteers, and it was amazing. The process of shooting the movie. So many. One that always comes to mind for me. It was a really hot day. We were shooting the scene with Santa out ringing the bell, and he's in that really hot Santa suit. It's really hot, and we ran out of water, and was kind of pushing through, and all this. The news had been kind of doing stories on the movie throughout the process. And this person drove up and said, hey, is this the movie out in the newspaper? We said, yeah. And she's like, what can I do to help? And my wife said, well, would you mind bringing water? She came back with a trunk full of bottled waters, and just everybody water than they need. And people, if I had $1 million to make a movie, and I'd forgot to forget water for that day, we would have been sunk, and we would have had people dehydrated. I didn't have $1 million, but I had God, and every need that we had was taken care of the process. If I had the choice between having $1 million to make a movie or having nothing but God to make a movie, God every time. And He's been kind of now reminding me of that as I move forward and try to get here with my movies. You keep holding out for millions and millions of dollars. If I give you a story, go make the film. And that doesn't just apply to me. People watching this, when he gives you a vision, tells you to do something, you're like, okay, well, logic says to wait for X, Y, and Z. And maybe sometimes you, but sometimes maybe he's just saying go. And then, like, I was completely ill-equipped. I didn't have power to do Homeless for the Holidays. And then we just stepped forward, and it happened. And it's funny. Have resources that you didn't even get, because I argued with them. I can't make this. I need some money. It's like, no, I don't. I power my house. You've got stocks. I was like, I can't sell my retirement. That's my note. He's like, what about that computer? You're not about this. And so we became best friends of eBay. We sold thing on. We sold all of our stock. My wife was like, I don't know about this. She's like, let's just do it. If God said it, let's do it. So we got enough money to pay our bills for like 6 months, get our power back on, do all that, fund the movie. And it was bread and fish. It wasn't $1 million budget for that movie. It was like 25,000 or something like that, which is like the water bottle in a normal movie. But we got, and then like a couple after we made the movie, we had stock went out of business, and the stock went 18 cents. So if I had said, no, God, I can't sell my retirement. I got to keep that. It would have been worthless anyway. So you just go.
What an inspiration you are to all of us to listen to God. Because when we do and we obey, He blesses, He provides.
Yes.
And you stepped out on faith with this movie, and He just provided everything you needed.
Amen.
How awesome. Yes, absolutely. Thank you so very much, George, for sharing that with us today. And I do want to mention you've got some other movies in the works, Pulled from Darkness, which is based on a true story as well. Yes, in trafficking. So and so that is certainly a current issue in our country, and in our world. So that I'm looking forward to as well. And I think Homeless for the Holidays too.
Working on the script, yes,
as we speak. And then I want to mention Matt Murray, my good friend Matt Murray, our good friend, his movie David's Star. And
Yes.
so, certainly looking forward to seeing that one as well.
Yes.
Thank you for joining me. And before we leave, if you have one thing that you can share with us about how to hold on to our faith in this ever changing world, what would that be?
Let go of the world. Imagine that you're out in the ocean and you have a flotation and a ball. The bowling ball is the cares of this world, and it's going to sink you. And that flotation device is your faith, and that will keep you afloat. And I would say the bowling ball, that's your fear, that's your doubt, that's your reasoning telling you I can't do this because I'm not equipped for it. Boop. Let it stay, and hold on to that flow base, which is your connection with God. And just if something's got to be laid down, and just cling to God,
Thank you. Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing. And I appreciate you being with me today. And if you will, please hang on after we do the outro, and we'll talk a little bit more. Thank you all for watching, and I want to thank our friends from Creative Motion Network for watching as well. Have faith and look up, friends, where our help comes from. Bye. God bless.